Now we're being recorded.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. We're really excited to share some really helpful tips and tricks for applying to and also paying for graduate school. So we have an illustrious group of people here, and I'll let everyone introduce themselves, but I'll first say my name is Holly Rudell. I'm a STEM peer advisor for the Office of Career Strategy. So if you are at all interested in applying to graduate school, an MS or a PhD, please come and make a personal appointment with me and be happy to walk through that process with you. And I'll turn it over to Tom.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here and excited to have you. I'm Tom Santa Maria. I'm a sixth year and really now graduating student in history and Renaissance studies, and I've been doing advising for humanities and social sciences for people applying to graduate school, and happy to continue taking appointments for a little while longer anyway. So hope to see you soon. And I guess I'll pass it to Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Lindsay Lawton. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Fellowships and Funding. I work with students who are applying for national and international awards like Fulbright, Truman, Beinecke, those sorts of things. So once you have an idea of the grad program that you'd like to do, we can talk about whether some of these competitive awards might be a fit for you. And I'll pass it to Rebecca.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Westfall in the Fellowships Office, and I primarily work with students who are looking to go to the UK or Ireland for graduate school. So work with Rhodes, Marshall, Mitchell, and a bunch of other UK and international fellowships.
Awesome. So to jump right in, we always like to start with this question of why graduate school, because it's a really important question that we really think that you should be asking yourself kind of constantly throughout the application process, both for applying to graduate school and also as you're writing fellowships too, really thinking critically about why are you considering going to graduate school and what do you want to get out of this degree program, whether it's a master's or a PhD. Are there particular research topics that you're interested in? Are there certain skills that you'd like to get? Really asking yourself, where do you see yourself going with this degree? And to that point too, what topics am I truly excited about? So that can be perhaps your major right now. You really want to dive in more deeply into that. Or maybe you're looking to transition fields. And so you want to get a supplementary degree to kind of strengthen your skill set in a slightly adjacent field. Another question to ask as well is, do I want to take time off? I think that this is a really important question. That is a really personal question of, you've been going for a long time at perhaps high speed in undergraduate. Do you want a year or two to perhaps work or take some time off, just to kind of clarify the answers to some of these questions of why do I want to go to graduate school? And at least for me, taking a year off was really helpful in my understanding of what I wanted to get out of graduate school. And I think it was really important for my decision to pursue graduate school with intentionality. And so, of course, again, we always need to have this now caveat of the COVID-19 consideration, which is that in some instances there can be competitiveness or reduced funding of programs, partially because of people staying in graduate programs for longer, so 6 or 7 or even longer years. And so some reduced funding there. And then also some additional competitiveness because of the view of graduate school as being kind of a safer option. As we know, our economy and job prospects are sometimes really scary. So some people will be choosing to apply to graduate school kind of as that safety option. We do recommend, again, that if you are considering applying to graduate school, even if you think that it's the safer route for right now, really critically asking yourselves kind of the questions on the left-hand side of the screen to make sure that this is the right decision for you at this time. And so another question that we get really frequently when we meet with people is how many programs and how do I even begin to find them? And this is really important too, as you're thinking about applying to fellowships, which we're going to talk about. The number of how many programs is not a hard and fast number. It really depends on you and your interests and what kinds of, again, careers or opportunities you want to pursue after graduate school, but it's usually 4 to 8. We have in parentheses here, consider the financial implications, because oftentimes graduate programs can have application fees associated with them, ranging from $50 to as much as $150. And so there are some financial implications of applying to, say, 15 schools. There are fee waivers that are available for people to use, for people to apply to, but that's oftentimes an additional process of navigating that system. So we just like to caveat that as well. To start your list, we really encourage people to start broadly by leveraging your network of people that you are currently surrounded by. Whether you are an alum right now or you are a student at Yale, talk to current graduate students, talk to some TFs in some of your courses, talk to past professors, current professors, talk to the people who are doing the work that you envision yourself doing. Whether that's in the academy or elsewhere. Yale has a phenomenal alumni network. So starting to talk to people and getting a sense of what their graduate school journey has been can oftentimes clarify what your graduate journey might look like. After you've talked to a lot of people, we always say this with a grain of salt, but maybe looking at the US News World Report, which will rank graduate programs. How they rank those programs is oftentimes a mysterious process. So we don't necessarily recommend that you just take the top 10 schools and just apply to those 10. But sometimes it can be a good kind of springboard from which to further look into some of those programs that are on there. And as you're curating this list, a conversation that I have with a lot of students is being honest with yourself about what your deal breakers are, even the quote unquote superficial ones like location. Where in the country, where in the world do you want to be? Do you want to be close to home? Do you want to be far away from home? Do you want to be in a different country? This is a really important decision to make because you're going to be in this environment for 1, 2, 4, 5, 7 years. And so location, I think, is actually a really important distinguisher for where you want to apply to graduate school. And then, of course, if you're interested in applying to PhDs, thinking about what research topics are available for you to pursue. And then for master's programs, and sometimes for PhDs as well, what requirements are there in terms of classes or teaching requirements? And again, being honest with yourself of, do you want to teach more or less? Do you want to take more or less classes? And so that's kind of the first pass filter of, okay, this is how I'm starting my list. But then as you're going and really deeply evaluating, let's say you have this list of 15 to 20 schools, kind of the next pass is really critically evaluating it. And so after you've kind of generated this list, we recommend that you explore the program and particularly faculty websites. And so on the program websites, oftentimes all the faculty will be listed there with a brief blurb about what their research is. And if you're interested in a PhD, what research topics are really getting you excited? And if on that brief blurb of a faculty member, you say, wow, that seems really interesting, then we recommend perhaps going to Google Scholar or JSTOR and reviewing their publications. So what is the most recent work that they've been doing? Are they collaborating with a lot of people? Are they really pushing the boundary in terms of their research? And is that something that you could see yourself being a part of? That's a really important question for particularly PhD programs where you're entering kind of this phase of academia in which you are no longer just consuming knowledge, you're actually producing new knowledge. So you want to be sure that through the ups and downs, that production of new knowledge is knowledge that you're really excited about. If you're interested in pursuing a master's degree, thinking about what is the focus of the program, what courses are required, what courses are available. Sometimes the electives can be really wide ranging across different schools. So thinking about what is available to you for taking. And then within that, are there specialties? If you're interested in pursuing an education degree and you want to specifically focus on online learning, is that available? So again, just being really careful and critical as you're evaluating this list. And usually that ends up being in the ballpark of 4 to 8 schools, but sometimes it's only 2 and sometimes it's 9. So we don't ever really like to give it a hard and fast number here. And then this comes to kind of the bulk of our presentation, which is the big question of funding. And we have in the US at least, though we will be talking about some international programs here. So we often get questions of funding and how this works for both PhD programs and master's programs. And of course, the answer is slightly different for both. So I'll start with PhD programs. So typically it's program and school specific, but our general advice is that you should not be paying to attend. If you are getting your PhD, you're going to be doing high caliber research. Generally, you are not paying tuition. And in fact, they are paying you. So your tuition will be covered, your stipend will be covered. Healthcare is also generally covered. For example, Yale does a phenomenal job of providing healthcare for their graduate students. And I would say that's more the norm in a lot of PhD programs, but especially for people in the US at least, who come off of, say, parents' health insurance at 26, this is definitely something to be considering as you're looking at different programs. And then, of course, childcare considerations as well. Certain schools will provide extra stipends for children, which is really useful for paying for childcare, especially as we know now, childcare costs can be really astronomical. As you're looking at this, though you are getting a stipend and your tuition will be covered, you're certainly not living in a high-rise apartment making six figures. And so thinking about what on-campus options like jobs, like working for the Office of Career Strategy, are available to you to boost your stipend as well. For MA and MS programs, it's very difficult, though not impossible, to get fully funded programs. It oftentimes is very program and school specific, so we recommend that you look at program websites for partial scholarships, sometimes maybe full scholarships. Oftentimes, master's programs can be viewed as taking out a loan as a return on investment. So if you're going to graduate school thinking about, I'm taking a loan right now with the intention that after I graduate, I'll be able to access jobs with kind of a higher starting salary. And so you're able to kind of make back that cost. But certainly funding for master's programs is a really important consideration. And so you can see that the last bullet point on both of these is that, of course, applying for fellowships is never a bad idea and actually may be a way for you to get a degree abroad. And so with this, I'm going to turn it over to our illustrious colleagues in the fellowships office to talk a little bit more about the innumerable options for fellowships for graduate school.
Thanks so much, Holly. So Holly just said something that I want to dig into a little bit, which is that it's never a bad idea to apply for fellowships. And that's correct, as long as you have really thought carefully about the program that you want to pursue and the reason that you want to pursue it. It is typically a bad idea to apply for a fellowship to support a graduate program that actually does not interest you. It's just a way to get your year paid for, right? Don't pursue a master's degree just because you found some funding for it. You want to first find the master's degree or the graduate study option that is a good fit for you, and then find the funding to support it. You'll have a better chance of winning the money that way, is one thing. And you'll have a more satisfying experience in graduate school. So when you're thinking about all of this stuff, it can be very difficult to decide where to begin because there are so many options for fellowships out there, and there are so many programs of graduate study. And if you're expanding beyond the United States, that makes an even bigger list to sort through. So we have this Venn diagram that I think can be really helpful for students when they're just getting started figuring out what to pursue. And this helps you separate out the requirements and the priorities of a fellowship, the requirements and priorities of a graduate program, and then your own goals, interests, and qualifications. You may be very well qualified for a fellowship, but it doesn't support graduate study at the institution that you want to attend. Then it's not a good fit for you. You may be very well qualified for a graduate program that doesn't have a fellowship you want to do, then you shouldn't pursue that. And so you want to think about how these different things intersect for you. So start with your specific goals and interests. What is it that you are after in graduate school, and what programs appeal, and then what fellowships also can cover those. A couple of things to bear in mind here. Some fellowships are tied to specific degree programs, in which case you're choosing the program and the fellowship at the same time. The Schwartzman Scholarship is a good example of this. This only supports a particular type of master's degree at a particular university. That's Tsinghua University in China. Some fellowships are tied to certain institutions, but are open to lots of different kinds of programs, like the Knight Hennessy, which can support graduate study in almost any field, I believe, at Stanford. That's Stanford, great. But what if you really want to go to Harvard? Knight Hennessy is no good to you. Some national fellowships are restricted to a particular type of program or a certain number of institutions. And this is one of those things that we can help you dig into once you've identified, this is the thing I want to study, and this is where I'm hoping to pursue it. Another really important consideration for you is that as you're thinking about graduate programs, you need to be thinking about fellowships sooner than you might imagine. Right now in the spring, we're having some difficult conversations with students who are hoping to start graduate school this fall and are only beginning to start looking for fellowships. It's too late for funding for this fall. In most cases, you want to begin a year at least before you would need the money in your bank account to start pursuing awards. And sometimes even 18 months, 2 years is not out of the question. So think about all of these factors as you're deciding on graduate programs and fellowships to pursue. The other point that I want to make on this slide, this is really important. We're talking about your qualifications. And some students decide they're not qualified without really digging into that. So if you think you're not qualified for one of these national awards, particularly if you have this kind of vague idea of, well, this is for people who are really smart and have their act together, and I'm not one of them, don't count yourself out. Please do check in with one of our advisors to be sure that you're understanding the requirements and the kind of bar that you would have to clear to be competitive for a fellowship before you count yourself out, because you may be underestimating yourself in a way that we can help you avoid. Let's see, I think I'm ready for the next slide. So these are a couple of examples of fellowships that can support graduate study. And this is a chance to talk a little bit more about that timeline and about the fit. So in terms of timeline, there are a couple of awards that are helpful to know about in junior year because they are deadlines for campus nomination in the fall of your junior year. So right now, what we mean by fall of junior year, if you're graduating between December of 2023 and August of 2024, even if you don't know what year you might begin graduate school, if that's your graduation timeline and you know you want to go to graduate school, you can be thinking about awards like the Truman Scholarship, which is to support graduate study leading to a career in public service. You could apply for the Beinecke, which can support graduate study in humanities and social sciences for students with financial need. These are competitive awards, so you don't know for sure that you're going to win them, and it's a lot to think through as a junior, but if you engage with these questions early on, it really literally can pay off in the long run. For rising seniors or alums who are headed to grad school fall of 2023, you want to be aware of programs like Fulbright, Marshall, Mitchell Rhodes, Schwartzman to support graduate study abroad. Those programs cannot support a graduate degree in the United States. So if you really want to study close to family in the Midwest, these programs are no good to you. If you're pursuing something in the United States, you might consider Somvid Scholars, Knight Hennessy at Stanford. The Soros Award for New Americans can be a great option. We have 4 Yaleys who just won that. So these are things to be thinking about now, because the deadlines for these fellowships will be coming in the next several months, and they will, if you win them, they would pay for things beginning in a year and change. All right, so now that I've gotten you stressed about the timelines, I also want to reassure you that there are a lot of really specific and niche awards out there that we don't know a ton about. We can help you try to think through an application for these, but there are awards that are internal. Once you apply to a graduate program, you may be made aware of additional funding that you can pursue within that institution. There are also sources of funding from professional societies, and I've listed a couple here that I just think are really fascinating. It's so interesting that these grants exist. If you know that you want to pursue graduate study to examine the science of sound, there's a graduate scholarship for that. This is not going to be a good fit for you if you're just thinking, well, maybe grad school, and I don't know, I kind of like science. No. Once you've figured out, this is the thing that I'm really excited to study, then this could be a good fit for you, right? Do you know that you want to conduct wool research? Great, let's talk about the Sheep Heritage Foundation. But if you're not sure what exactly you want to do in grad school, you haven't gotten your list of 4 to 8 schools yet, for example, these kinds of awards are not going to be helpful for you. That's going to be more of a procrastinating tool. So just know these things exist and are going to be more helpful to pursue once you've got a very clear idea of what you're after. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca, who's going to talk a little bit more about funding for master's degrees in the UK, which is a real popular option for Yaleys.
All right, thanks, Lindsay. So, and the first thing I would say is that there are more fellowships than you think for stuff in the UK. There seem to be many fellowships for Oxford and Cambridge, but also for other universities. So there are 130 universities in the UK. It's hard to figure out which one is the best thing for which thing. So there is a very useful document, which is actually going to be released, I think, in April or May, called the Research Excellence Framework of 2022. You can find that online probably in a couple of months, but that will help you sort through some of the programs if you're thinking about heading to the UK. So I'll just walk through a few of these. We did mention Rhodes only for study at Oxford, and that would include the Clarendon, which is an internal fellowship at Oxford that can actually cover masters or DPhils, DPhil being the PhD equivalent. Rhodes is a 2 or 3 year fellowship and can cover any degree program at Oxford. The Ertigan is a kind of special fellowship actually for furthering scholarship in the humanities. So that's an unusual one. You would apply for that at the same time as you applied for your degree at Oxford. And then there are a whole bunch of fellowships only for study at Cambridge. This is just a small collection, actually, because both Cambridge and Oxford have a huge amount of internal funding. And one thing you want to make sure of when you're applying to any UK university is that you not only obviously apply to the degree program, but in time for their internal funding deadline. And mostly for Oxford and Cambridge, that deadline is either going to be in early December or early January, depending on when you're actually applying. So the Gates Cambridge, for example, a well-known fellowship which will fund master's degrees or DPhils, so 1 to 3 years. And that is for any program at Cambridge, but it must have a focus on public service. So that's something, at least your goals through your program. So there are many students in all disciplines who pursue that fellowship. The Churchill is something actually that requires nomination by Yale. It's available to seniors, undergrads, but also for alumni. 1 year out of Yale, so that's something STEM students only. The Paul Mellon that's only available to seniors at Yale, and that's an internal fellowship at Yale. The King's Yale, also an internal fellowship at Yale, available to seniors. And then there's another one which is internal to Cambridge, the Chevening. It actually requires 2 years of graduate school before, not 2 years of graduate school, 2 years of work before you can apply to that fellowship. So that's a slightly unusual one. But again, a huge amount of internal funding at Cambridge, most of it under the umbrella of the Cambridge Trust. So that's where you need to search for that. The Mitchell can be applied for up to the age of 30 for any 1 year program at the university in Ireland or Northern Ireland. So a great way to get over there if you have a really good reason to be in either Ireland or Northern Ireland. And that's something, if you're applying as an undergraduate, you need nomination, but you can apply directly without nomination at any other time. Marshall and Fulbright are I think the only fellowships which will support study at most UK universities. The Marshall will support 1 or 2 years, actually up to a DPhil, so 3 years, for study at almost any university in the UK. And that does require nomination. You can apply for up to 2 years after you graduate from your undergraduate degree. And the Fulbright, of course, has many partnerships with UK universities, no age limit there. And that is a 1 year study program at many different UK universities. So that's your way to get around the UK at different places. The Henry is another internal fellowship, only for Yale seniors who are looking to do a master's degree. It's 1 year for study at Oxford or Cambridge. And then a slightly funny fellowship, the St Andrews Graduate Scholarship, which requires some kind of Scottish heritage, even if it's hundreds of years ago, for study at any Scottish university. And you do need to be a senior to be able to apply for that as well. So basically, the point of this slide is there's loads more fellowships than you think. And we have a whole bunch of them listed on our website, which you can apply to directly or with nomination. All right, next slide. Did we miss a slide? There we go. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about funding specifically for international students. The Rhodes Scholarship, actually, while we concentrate a lot on the US scholarship process for Rhodes Scholars come, there are 100 Rhodes Scholars every year coming from a whole pile of different jurisdictions around the world. There is also the Global Rhodes Scholarship. So that is for international students who do not fit into one of the existing jurisdictions. So that's a possibility for funding at Oxford. Schwarzman Scholars, we've mentioned already, available to students of any nationality. Gates Cambridge is the same. The Knight Hennessy, you can apply for up to 5 years after you graduate from college, any nationality. The Paul Mellon Henry and King's Yale, internal fellowships at Yale, but for any nationality. The Soros is a really interesting fellowship for new Americans. So this includes DACA, people with DACA status, permanent residents, people who became citizens recently in the US, people whose parents were immigrants to the US. So their eligibility is actually very, very broad. The Carnegie Endowment for International Peace is a one-year internship with the Carnegie Endowment, and that is available to any nationality. Then there's the Rotary Fellowship is an interesting fellowship. It provides $30,000 for graduate school, and you can apply through a bunch of different districts around the country. You can apply through New Haven, but you can also apply through your home district. And that's something I would look into. And then most recently, we were informed about a list of scholarship for international students called Immigrants Rising, which lists a whole bunch of scholarships of all different kinds specifically for international students. It also includes information about fellowships for undocumented students. So some great resources there that I would look into. And I think I will be handing it back to, somebody.
I think that's going to be me. I hope.
All right, Tom.
I hope everyone's been taking notes. We've had a lot of good information. And I also suggest that you look at the OCS YouTube pages, especially this information about the personal statement and the applying to graduate school process has been recorded with me and Holly last fall. And as this is a little bit of a condensed version, you can find a longer version there too. So the personal statement says right there, probably the most important component of your application. This is always a question people ask. What are review boards looking for in a graduate application? Well, they want to know what you have to say for yourself. And the place where you do that is the personal statement. About a page or a page and a half, single spaced, maybe 1,000 words-ish is a good sort of guideline to be thinking about that. It's the place where you get to talk about yourself. What is motivating you to take on graduate work? What you have done in your past that's prepared you, what skills you've acquired in college or honed, what questions you've been interacting with, and then ultimately, what questions you hope to be thinking about with your time in graduate school as well. And then ultimately, you will want to have a section thinking about why you're applying to a specific program or university. I like to think of a little analogy that you are going to be the leading man or leading lady of a film, and you are looking for a good director. This would be the person who might guide your master's thesis or doctoral dissertation. You're looking for the supporting cast, other faculty members maybe who could help you along your way, teach courses you're interested in. And then to the crew, what are the resources that the university has? Libraries, special collections, funding opportunities for, say, conference travel or things like that. So ultimately, those are the components of the personal statement where you are trying to communicate that you are ready to be a serious graduate student, that you are prepared to take on graduate work, and that you're going to be a colleague to your fellow students and faculty there as well. Two good points here about drafting and getting eyes on your personal statement. I think you've already heard, whether it's for fellowships or applying to graduate school, in some ways, you can't start too early. If you're just starting to think about it in the fall, well, it's possible to get master's applications together. It's possible to get PhD applications together, but certainly the spring before you're applying is a good time. It gives you a chance to, like Holly was talking about earlier, make your list of schools, start working on your personal statement, and start identifying and writing to potential directors. I think we're ready for the next slide, Holly. Okay, and again, what are the important things about my application? GPA. This is, I'll sort of reiterate or echo some earlier points. Certainly a high GPA is a way to convey your preparedness, the seriousness with which you've taken on studies so far as an undergraduate student, but it's probably not a good idea to count yourself out based on whatever GPA you might have. Certainly, as I say, high GPAs are helpful, but it might also be important to think too about your transcript. What courses have you taken? Are they challenging courses? Are there certain, can you explain maybe perhaps why your GPA might be where it is? Did you make a shift in your undergraduate major? And another point that I can bring up actually came up in an advising appointment today, in terms of the issue of transcript. A lot of people switch majors. And so by the time they're starting to think about applying to graduate school as juniors or even seniors, maybe they've only taken a few courses in their major. That can be okay too, okay? Ultimately, no one expects someone with a BA to be an expert in an area of study. That's why you're going to get a master's degree or a doctoral degree, because you're going to be building that expertise as time moves on. So the point is to demonstrate an interest, and in your personal statement to emphasize the skills and questions that you have been interacting with and the things that you want to be thinking about in future. Of course, as it says here, there are some programs that would require you to have certain coursework, quantitative skills, like R or lab skills or things like that, depending on what types of programs you're applying to. And then there are probably other fields where there might not be requirements, but there are certain things that you can do as an undergraduate student that would make you a more compelling candidate. For example, if you're going to go ahead and get a PhD in classics, well, you really need to demonstrate knowledge of Latin and Greek. That is likely going to be by being a classics major. If you're getting a PhD in another humanities discipline, it always helps to have a few languages under your belt already, or to be working on them, as this basically will suggest to the graduate school that you're applying to that you don't need to spend so much time working on languages when you become a graduate student. I think we're ready for the next. There we go. Recommendation letters. Okay, so the recommendation letter. This is important because this recommendation letters work with your personal statement in communicating things that you want to say about yourself. What is the message you're trying to get across? Your recommendation letters will help you, and your recommenders will help you get that message across. Generally speaking, if you're applying to academic programs, it's a good and nice idea to have 3 academic recommenders. For some people who might be out of school for a little while, there are other possibilities, and of course it would depend on your program as well. Ultimately, what's really important is picking the 2 or likely 3 people who are going, who know you well, and therefore can write positively and specifically about you. They might be pointing out certain instances, or they might know your research really well, or your, what type of student you are really well. And that's very, very helpful. So, if you're down to a situation, and this is inevitably a type of question that people ask, should I take a person, who is really in my field, but, it was a lecture class and I never really met him or her, or should I take the person, in this other area of my coursework that knows me really well? These are always tough decisions, but I think we would recommend erring with the person who knows you better. So that can be really, really helpful. Okay, then this is a good point. How to ask people for recommendations. It suggests an Excel sheet here. You want to keep one of these for yourself as you're applying to school, but it's also helpful to send it to a recommender. Here it says asking for recommendation 2 months in advance. I would say that's a great idea. One thing too that I often tell Yale students is many people choose to take a gap year. So one of the things to do is, as you maybe are starting to think about graduate school, you are probably going to want to think about cultivating relationships with potential recommenders, and start to say, I am thinking about graduate school. What advice do you have? And then, if you're away from Yale for a year or two, over the course of the year or two, if graduate school is still on your mind, send an email to a faculty person every once in a while. Our faculty here, generally speaking, are eager and willing to help students. And but sometimes students are a little intimidated, or they are a little afraid to write and let faculty people know their interests. So I would say one of the things to do is to be proactive, to reach out to faculty early, and to start building those relationships so that you have someone who can write specific and positive things about you. But for actually formally asking for a letter, 2 months is a good plenty of time. And the following up with 3 weeks, usually now with the online submissions, it'll let you know if or when a recommender has submitted. If they haven't, then yes, definitely follow up around 3 weeks, which will give the person, ample time to prepare a letter and write on your behalf. And at the end of this process, definitely send thank you cards and certainly send updates. Recommenders love to know about your successes and hear that you're doing well and moving on in whatever field you've chosen. And now I'm handing it back to, is it going to be Lindsay or Rebecca?
It's me. So we've talked a lot about different programs that you might pursue with graduate study and all of the different fellowship options that are out there. We invite you again to meet with us individually, come to info sessions. We have a lot of info sessions this time of year about some of those postgraduate awards we mentioned. But if it's the middle of the night and you're just anxious about this stuff and you want to get started, great. Here are some ways that you can do that. These are some helpful resources. And these slides are going to be posted somewhere, so you'll be able to click through, but you can find all of these resources on the fellowship's website as well. That's funding.yale.edu. So we have a really useful list of postgraduate awards that are ordered by approximate deadline. So you understand where in the year those deadlines will fall, and you can see kind of the basic information about these awards. That's a really useful one. We also have a page that shows some external awards that are not going to be listed in the Yale Student Grants database. That's because these are awards that do not have a nomination process or are ones to which you apply completely independently. We never know whether you do it or not. So these external awards may be interesting to you. There's a whole huge section of our website dedicated to graduate study in the UK and Ireland. And there are lots of ways that you can approach that, different lists of programs. I believe there are some links to the Research Excellence Framework that Rebecca mentioned. There are lists of the awards that Rebecca was discussing that you can pursue. So all kinds of things there. Also, our website is where you'll find the link to make an appointment with us. Of course, there's the Yale Student Grants database. You can see on the Fulbright website as well, a list specific to Fulbrights that support graduate study. It's not just the UK, you can use a Fulbright for graduate study in many different countries. And then finally, this database at the University of Illinois that I like to suggest. It's linked on our website as well, but that is the one where you can find a lot of that very niche professional association funding, the grants for very, very specific kinds of graduate study. So those are some resources for you to dig into on your own. But again, feel free to be in touch with us. And Rebecca is going to tell you about some of our upcoming events now.
Yeah, and one, in fact, is going to be happening in an hour and 15 minutes, which is the Schwarzman Scholars Program. This is obviously for a Master's in Global Affairs at Tsinghua University in Beijing, but the Schwarzman folks will be doing that one. And then there's another one tomorrow about Knight Hennessy, which is, obviously we've talked about that a little bit. So these are two opportunities to learn about this, but actually both of these programs give information sessions all the time, and you can go on their website and find out when those are going to be. So. All right, I think we're at the close. Holly, you want to close us out?
Sure, yeah. Thank you everyone for taking the time to come listen to all of this information. We know we've inundated you with a lot of resources and opportunities. So as you can tell, this is a long process, but we are really here for you. So set yourself up well this spring and summer and come and chat with us, make an appointment. It's really easy for us to kind of discuss individually what your circumstances are, what you're interested in, where we can be helpful, whether applying to graduate school, applying to fellowships, or doing both. Because as we kind of mentioned, there's a lot of overlap between the things that you will need for a grad school application and the things you will need for a fellowship application. So doing this all in conjunction, I think is a good use of time. So with that, we will just say thank you all for joining us on this beautiful spring day, and we will hopefully see you soon.